Secretary-General essentially listed a series of reasons why he feels Resolution 2401, which is now 16 days old, has failed. Secretary-General said there's been no cessation of hostilities and that violence continues in eastern Ghouta, Afrin, Idlib and Damascus. He talked about an increase in shelling in eastern Ghouta, how the 5-hour ceasefire negotiated with the Russians is insufficient to get aid in, how civilians are being prevented from leaving by fighters on the ground. He agreed with the International Red Cross that 70% of the aid that does get into eastern Ghouta is being stolen by fighters. And he touched on 3 separate allegations of the use of chlorine gas in recent weeks. The Secretary-General also pointed out that the Syrian civil war is 8 years old on Thursday.
It should also be possible to remove Security Council listed terrorist fighters from conflict zones without massive and indiscriminate attacks against civilians and civilian infrastructure. We cannot give up for the sake of the Syrian people.
What is the Council to do about this? Nikki Haley, the US ambassador to the United Nations, talked about a new resolution and said if the Council doesn't act, then the US will. That resolution is specific to Damascus and eastern Ghouta. She talked about the threat of airstrikes. She said it's not a path we prefer, but we're prepared to act again if we must. The Council is hobbled, Russia blaming the UN on the ground and at headquarters, the US saying the Council is as impotent as it appears to be. Throughout this session, there were more calls for a 30-day ceasefire to begin, and yet the Council also heard that maybe many more than 500 civilians have been killed in the last 16 days since Resolution 2401 was adopted. China's ambassador, Ambassador Ma, expressed sympathy for the people of Syria and said that a political solution is the only way out of the crisis. John Terrett, CGTN, New York.